In the quiet industrial zones of Europe, far from the flashy tech hubs of Silicon Valley or Shenzhen, sits a company that few outside the semiconductor world ever talk about. Its name is Nexperia, a Dutch chip maker specializing not in cutting-edge AI processors or futuristic quantum circuits, but in something far more humble, the everyday chips that keep the modern world running. These small components, diodes, transistors, power controllers, are the unseen backbone of cars, appliances, energy systems, medical devices, and nearly every electronic product made today. They are cheap, simple, and easy to overlook, but they are also absolutely indispensable. And in the last few years, Nexperia found itself unexpectedly standing at the center of a geopolitical storm, pulled between China, which owns the company, Europe, where it operates, and the United States, which fears its technology falling under Beijing's control. This is the story of how one Dutch company became a symbol of the new global tech Cold War. Nexperia's journey begins with Philips, the historic Dutch electronics giant. Its semiconductor division was eventually spun off, forming what would later become Nexperia. For years, it operated quietly, making reliable, low-margin chips used by the automotive and industrial sectors. In 2019, something changed. A rapidly expanding Chinese company, Wingtech Technology, acquired Nexperia entirely. There was little public attention at the time. After all, Nexperia wasn't making advanced processors or sensitive telecom equipment. It wasn't a flashy tech giant like Huawei. It was just a manufacturer of small, basic semiconductors. But as the global rivalry between China and the West intensified, even small chips became strategic assets. By 2021 and 2022, the world was gripped by a semiconductor shortage that crippled industries everywhere. Automakers halted production, electronics companies delayed launches, and suddenly, the world realized that even a missing 10-cent chip could stop a $100,000 car from rolling off the assembly line. Nexperia's importance skyrocketed overnight. The United States, watching China expand its reach into global semiconductor supply chains, began to take notice. Washington had already placed export controls on many Chinese companies, and the acquisition of Nexperia raised red flags. American officials feared that a Chinese-owned chipmaker inside Europe could become a legal loophole, allowing China to access Western semiconductor technologies that it otherwise could not obtain. And so the pressure campaign began. In early 2025, U.S. officials expressed deep concerns to the Dutch government, warning that Nexperia's governance under its Chinese leadership represented a potential security risk. American authorities signaled that unless the company changed its management structure, particularly its Chinese chief executive, it could face severe trade and export restrictions. Europe suddenly found itself caught between two superpowers. On one side was the United States, its most important military and economic ally. On the other was China, a major trading partner and home to the company that owned Nexperia. And in the middle stood a single Dutch firm making basic chips. In September 2025, something unprecedented happened. The Dutch government invoked a rarely used national law, allowing it to intervene in private companies considered vital to national security. Officials declared that Nexperia had serious governance failures and posed a strategic risk due to its Chinese ownership structure. Within days, the government temporarily took control of Nexperia. For a country known for its open markets and pro-business policies, this was a historic step and a clear signal that the global chip war had reached European soil. The Chinese CEO of Nexperia was removed from his position. A new interim leadership team, approved by the Dutch state, took over. Investigations began into Nexperia's internal governance, supply chain practices, and links to its parent company, Wingtech. Beijing reacted with fury. Chinese officials accused the Netherlands of political interference and warned that the West was weaponizing regulation to block Chinese tech companies from global markets. In retaliation, China slowed down certain export approvals, affecting shipments of components tied to Nexperia's operations. Suddenly, a company that produced some of the simplest chips in the world became the center of a diplomatic confrontation. The tension escalated even further when Nexperia announced that it would halt shipments of semiconductor wafers from its Dutch factories to its facilities in China. The company claimed that its Chinese operations had failed to meet contractual obligations, including payment terms. But behind the scenes, analysts believed the real reason was geopolitical pressure. Sending partially processed chips to China could be seen as helping Beijing circumvent Western export controls. And with U.S. officials watching closely, Nexperia was under immense scrutiny from every direction. The consequences were immediate. Global automakers, many of which rely heavily on Nexperia's components, warned of potential production delays. European industrial groups lobbied for a quick political solution. Chinese companies scrambled to secure alternative suppliers. A company that built its business on stability, predictability, and quiet operations was now threatening to disrupt supply chains across 3 continents. At its core, Nexperia's crisis reflects a deeper truth about today's world. Technology companies, especially those in the semiconductor industry, are no longer just businesses. They are strategic assets, battlegrounds, and bargaining chips in a new era of geopolitical rivalry. China wants to build technological self-sufficiency. The United States wants to maintain global dominance in key technologies. And Europe wants to protect its own supply chains and avoid choosing sides. And Nexperia, a once obscure Dutch company, has become a symbol of this struggle.